Hi, welcome to the Braincast. I have today with me my inaugural guest, Miss Jennifer. I met Jennifer through a couple networking, actually just one networking event, and then we ended up going out for coffee. And after hearing her story, I was very much intrigued by what she's doing and the philosophical things that she's involved with. And so with interviewing other entrepreneurs that are building a business, starting a business, I thought her story would be something really good to just start with. So will you give a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Aciedo of Reach. I was born and raised here in Chicago. Grew up in a family that only knew the medical profession, primarily nursing and being a lab technician.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been in North Side, and I ended up being a nurse, which is very typical in my community, but always felt that something was off.
Right.
I felt like maybe there's something wrong with me, or,
Because you weren't enjoying.
I wasn't enjoying it. At the same time, it never was, I guess, like a value system in our family to kind of, figure out, what is your joy? It's always
Right.
about survival, and just, a
Right.
typical immigrant, experience, which I'm grateful for. I'm not
Right.
trying to knock it in any way. So,
But that's the I think the difference in where both of us are kind of blessed with that. My father came here from Poland when he was 8, and it was just you follow everyone and you just work
Yes.
because that's what you do. There weren't choices kind of at
Yes.
that time, and we're both sort of, for lack of a better word, blessed in that we have the opportunity to really figure out what we're into.
right.
And explore those passions, those joys, right?
Right. Yes.
When did your family come over then?
Actually, my mother was an exchange student and
She-
was in California for like a solid year, and it was a huge change, in contrast of lifestyle. And she really loved America, from what I heard, when she was there, and
that
always
sold her.
wanted to come. Yeah, wanted to be here. So, and then my parents met here in Chicago and got married.
Oh,
And
okay.
then had me.
So first off, where did she come from?
She's off an island called Negros.
Okay.
So there's like over 7,000 islands in the Philippines. And she's from a particular region. And she speaks a different language from my father.
Interesting.
Yeah. But my father's language is a national language. So she knows his language, but he doesn't necessarily know hers.
Because hers is a smaller island,
Yes.
smaller dialect, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did he come over?
1970s.
So did he come to Chicago first?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
mother, California. So she went to California, went back.
Yes.
And then came back.
To Chicago, if I believe.
To
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah, to
Interesting.
Chicago, yeah.
Do you know why the choice, at least for Chicago, or?
Well, that's a great question. I think there was family here first, and then they sponsored them to come here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know why why they came here. I know it's for Polish speaking. It's like I think it's the highest population of Polish speaking people outside of Warsaw or something. So I think that's why they gravitated here. But I don't. So Chicago rules. It's a good.
Yeah.
It's a good melting pot.
Yeah, it is.
So did you move here? Have you lived? You were Chicago all your life.
All my life. I was born in Columbus Hospital, which does not exist anymore, but my mother worked there for many years. And, So,
Okay.
yeah.
So Chicago, same. I was suburbs, and then I just kind of got hooked. Oak Park, went to school downtown, and then I just kind of got hooked downtown. And that energy
Yes.
is just like when you don't know any better and you think people are very happy. When you get off the train, there's that energy once you realize that a lot of those people might not be as excited as you are when you experience the rush of hundreds of people getting off a train, which is just in part my journey. That energy drag, got me to Chicago, and then you realize happiness isn't there, even though it's a beautiful, beautiful place but that could also be a side note of jobs and whatnot. So you got involved with, so how do we do this? So from spirituality, philosophically, so it wasn't really hitting, you did college, you did nursing.
Yeah.
You kind of just followed that through
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Well, both my parents are actually very spiritual people. And my mom was reading me, and she was like, her words to me were, Jennifer, you're a free spirit. Those were her exact words to me. Go into nursing, because you will always find a job.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was
survival.
right, though.
Yeah.
She was right. And her main concern was that I would be able to provide for myself so that I didn't have to struggle, and then I could also pursue things that I loved. And
Right.
Which I did actually do that for a while, which was interesting because but at the same time, it was such a, there were like two different worlds. Like I would actually go to theater class, but like the night before, like we would have a code, and you're like trying to
Oh,
save
yeah.
someone's life,
Yeah.
and I'm young. I'm like in my early 20s, and then my fellow thespians couldn't relate, and I couldn't relate to them. So, and I felt like I was
Right.
growing up much faster
Yeah.
than my peers. So
So you did theater.
yeah, I was actually studying theater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
Did you with the intention to act, or like obviously act, but like in plays or movies? What was the goal?
I just liked. I think that's in hindsight. I was exploring. I didn't
Right.
really have like the deepest desire goal type thing.
But it was an interest that
It
you
was
wanted
an
to pursue,
right.
run as far as you could, and then see what happened.
Yes, that type of thing. And I've written plays that have been produced.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Was there? Interesting. So were they spiritual? Were they somewhat biographical?
They dealt with like cultural themes, and just being like caught in two cultures.
Nice.
That type
I mean, not
of
nice,
thing.
but
Yeah. Yeah. So
Interesting.
that type of thing, and that's actually something I really want to pursue.
do more writing.
Yeah, but it's like, I have to lock myself like in a room.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
well,
and
yeah.
do it.
Well, you know what I
Yeah.
found with any creation is, as I think the joke is always like when people are like, well, I want to be a writer, and writers just say, step one, apply ask to chair. Like they're like, that's it, and then just do it. Just make sure you're
Yeah.
there.
Right.
And so I think, which is why I think we'll get there eventually, spiritually, but like, I think with one of the creation thing, sometimes you may figure if it's morning. So I think figuring out your energies, if it's easier for you, like if your mind is more active in the morning, if you have those stories, or if at night when you after the day is done and then you have this thing that pours out of you, because it's definitely a challenge to sit down and just pull. But I guess I can talk about myself, right, a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is, so I do illustration, and that was like a path that I took. So my background was animation, so I was, into drawing and illustration and stuff.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing, because I would always tell myself I wanted to do illustration stuff, but I never did it. And then eventually I carved out. It was really, you could like wring your brain for 3 to 4 hours a day, really like pulling out. But I think that's something to notice, because then you figure, because another creation thing that I found very helpful, that took me a while to really learn, but once I figured it out, it was everything kind of just flow, is that the creation guy and the editor guy are two different people. And so I think so many people, when they're trying to create, they bring the editor in.
That's
And
interesting.
the editor is always stopping every sentence.
Right.
Because the editor is just like, no, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. But you need to, I think the hardest part about creation is actually shutting that guy up, or girl, and then just letting the creator do its thing.
Right.
And then eventually you bring in the editor. And that's when your energy isn't as
Yeah.
bountiful or whatever, because at least for me, I would get, it'd be maybe, half hour, and I'd get the kind of the first idea down, and then, within an hour and a half, I'm like just doing pages of just ideas because it's just, the
Yeah.
fire gets going.
Right,
And so
right.
I think that was one of the things that helped me. That was like my biggest hurdle, I think, with just separating the creator and the editor.
Did you discover that on your own?
Yeah. I'm
That's
sure I heard it
awesome. Yeah.
through maybe something but
Yeah.
I realized, when I found it, and
Yeah.
it was really shutting that one editor up,
Mm-hmm.
allowed me just to create so much more without, because and I really think that's the trick. I think so many people really trip themselves up because they're hearing their parents or someone, whatever stifles them forever.
Right.
And then eventually
Yeah.
you got to really work to shut them up.
Right. But it's also related to like the creative process in terms of like being an entrepreneur too, because that's really rooted in like what Napoleon Hill is talking about with the fear of criticism. It's the number one fear actually. It's just a fear of criticism.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So the fear of getting started?
Yeah, so Napoleon Hill said that the number one fear of why Napoleon Hill actually has said that majority of ideas are stillborn. And we have to give birth to them to keep them living by just, number one, writing them down.
Yep.
Or like drawing them.
Yep.
And then feeding that thought so that it becomes more alive. But what really keeps the idea from even being born is the fear of criticism.
I totally agree. I think what that kind of, I'm sure there's there's probably a bunch of studies about either just parents and even just like sibling orders. I wouldn't be surprised, just wherever, if you've had, I was probably a stifling older brother to some of my sisters because, you're just a jerk and you don't know any better and you pick on people, and then you do everything in your later half once you realize you were a jerk and you're like, okay, I'm going to be nice. Because no kids don't know any better as like being, not to whatever. But,
Yeah.
and I think, even still though, even though as I was an older sibling, you still have that from parents or just even friends and, that you're like embarrassed when you tried something and then someone shot you down and you believe them. But I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Napoleon Hill, or how do you want to jump from there? Do you have any good?
So it's almost, what's really interesting? Can I share this?
Yeah. Just if you don't want it ever recorded.
Oh yeah, no, it's good.
If you never want it recorded, do like this, and then at least I'll edit that.
Okay, cool.
Otherwise, I'll assume that everything is.
It's good, yeah. I'm doing a really interesting exercise, right? And I was journaling for maybe 2 hours.
Wow.
And the questions were like the script of your life, and writing it as if like it's like a movie or whatever.
Right.
And what is the theme of your movie? And I'm like, what is the theme of my movie? The theme of my movie is, it's just finding like someone's journey to find a true authenticity.
Okay.
That type of thing. And it's a drama, it's a comedy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's kind of like what the whole theme has been. It's just finding like what really
the true self.
Yeah, what is really the true self? Because there's a part of me that felt like, there's a part of me that wants to serve as a nurse, and I learned so much from it. And one of the biggest things I learned was emotional grit.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Big emotional grit, right? So, and that really serves me now, And at the same time, I love being creative, but I don't believe in being poor.
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
And right. And I was walking in these entrepreneurial, circles, and at the same time, like, they weren't necessarily socially conscious at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I have a very strong socially conscious background.
Right.
So that it's been this type of searching, like, it sounds so.
No.
Where do I belong type thing. So and all
but
of that. Yeah.
Those are the good questions that I think so many people ask, but then so many people don't try and discover that. I think that's where so many people, and I feel like, when you're walking, when you end up leaving certain groups of friends behind,
Right.
because
Yes.
you guys kind of just hit a certain point,
Right.
and then it's like, oh, you're not asking these questions still. They kind of just get stuck in their ways, and then there's like, I'm not going to ask any more questions, or, my life is good. I'm just going to watch movies or, whatever.
Yeah.
Which, as a film guy, I do love watching movies and stuff,
Yeah.
but I feel like I love watching them. I don't know about you, but I'm like with exhaustion. Like if I'm active, like sometimes I get really antsy and I can't, just sit there and like just watch anything. Like I need to almost be exhausted and like, okay, let's just relax
Yeah.
and zone out. Or with my son, sometimes
Yeah,
you're forced and you just got to
right.
sit down.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Are you what's your hobbies? So you like writing?
I do love movies.
You like movies?
I do love movies. We like to like walk in like nature and stuff. That's, I can't, we're not big hikers. I mean, where can we really hike, in Chicago? But
The North, well,
we
I
like
guess
to walk.
North Branch, you can't really hike, but you could walk there because
Yeah.
you're Skokie-ish.
We're Skokie, yeah.
So
we
you're
can-
by the North Branch, right?
I mean, we
The
could
trail.
walk. We could freaking walk all the way to Botanical if we wanted to, But going back to the whole thing about questions, which I find it very fascinating, because that's really, if we choose to really tap into how infinite our minds are,
Right.
we could.
You're right.
It's just kind of like there's that saying, like, people don't know that they are in prisons they're not aware of.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I totally do.
And for a long time being a nurse, I didn't realize how much of a prison I was in. And we keep ourselves there. And I think a big part of it is because we don't ask enough questions. It came to a point where I was just like, does it really have to be this way?
Right.
I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be this way. That was it.
I believe that. I think that's huge, and that's because I know that's how I was feeling with my spot. You're like, well, money's good, but shouldn't I be like really happy now because money's good? And then
Right.
there really is so much more to that.
Right.
You don't know how you're stifled, and I think the thing I keep seeing this quote is probably on Instagram, where it's just like, you can't ask someone directions on where to go if they've never gone to that place. And I wonder if that's part of the journey where you kind of just, did you have people sort of telling you that things were good enough? Like, and you should just be.
Yeah, basically, like that's, and I think there's also that kind of, not struggle, but finding that place where it's okay, like to not be satisfied, to be dissatisfied does not mean you're ungrateful.
Right.
And I couldn't discern the two, that you can actually be very grateful and dissatisfied at the same time.
Right. Yeah, you're not like spoiled.
Yes. You know what I mean? So, but for a long time, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be grateful for all this, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I feel like I'm dying.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's part of the immigrant background, I would say.
Yeah.
Which is like, because that's really how you're taught, and you should be blessed and happy that you have this solid thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's where that on the shoulders of giants phrase, like things aren't single generational. Like it's for me to be able to leave a decent job, for you to leave a decent job,
Yeah.
is really on the shoulders of our parents, of them kind of laying a foundation. However, what's interesting is you wonder if I always feel like they would have the opportunity to have left, because I see my dad and
Right.
how
Yes.
I feel like he just kind of got stuck into those ways.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wonder, well, did he just truly get into his way, and that's why he could never go
Yeah.
further?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's more mental conditioning, I guess, which
Right.
asking those questions, and I don't know. So let's talk about the questions. How do you think people,
Yeah.
do you think they almost come up when people are dissatisfied?
And it's funny because I feel like I was reflecting on this where, like someone said, you'll want to change when you're in pain, right? Or, which is actually partial. I mean, that's true. Like some people, they don't really pursue spiritual, endeavors unless they've really gone through like a painful experience or something like that. Which is, I agree. But that's kind of like the gift of the painful experience, though.
Right.
That's
true.
And it's something to be grateful for, actually, because if you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't. And there's nothing to be ashamed.
Right.
As well. There's just nothing and for a while I felt like, should I feel bad that I'm not? And I'm surrounded by this. You have to understand that.
Right.
Like
Oh, yeah.
We both are.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by
Be happy.
Be happy. Just have that perfect life with that house and. Whatever, and then you work there until you retire, and then you travel a little bit, but deep down inside, it's really a question of spirit.
Right.
There is something more that you want, and it's almost like no matter what, I'm going to find that.
Right.
And you go against the status quo, though, and there's
pushback.
There's pushback, and there's a consequence to that at the same time. So you really have to, how can I say this? You have to know what you're really about. You really have to know what you're really, really about.
Like what you believe.
What you believe.
Deep down.
Yeah. And what's really right for you. Because at the same time, what I've chosen is not necessarily more correct
right.
than anybody else.
Yes, that's true. Right.
I just, it's a real balancing act.
Yeah. It is really correct to you though,
right.
and that's what's important.
Exactly.
Because you know thyself.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the pushback, the weird. I know there was a lot of people kind of not as gung-ho about me leaving anything that was steady at the time that I was. There were a couple people that were interested, thought it was cool, and then others that were kind of like, why are you doing that? Things are good, just chill out. No. Because when and actually, I think one of the people that was saying no when we had a conversation, it was the pain to change. It's always when the pain to stay is more than the pain to change or something. Yeah, I think that's what the quote is. And that's kind of what it is when it's just like, yeah, you're just, there's got to be more.
And to change, you have to get uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's part of the whole process,
the
path.
There's no leave and then rainbows.
Yes.
It's leave and then
yes. And then what I get myself into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But it's so weird. It's been an insane journey. Mm-hmm. It's been an insane journey for me. It's 2 years and a couple months to the date since I left.
Yeah.
And I had my dad. I don't even want to go into it. I'll probably start crying. My dad started he had lung cancer, and my son my son was born, and then my dad had lung cancer. I was trying to help him out with all this stuff, and it was just...
That's a lot.
And then there was hardly any time for me, so then just finding that, in all that, that's what's even harder. I guess just to be honest, I've started talking to someone, and they helped, guide and let people know that's like, oh, that's okay to do those things. I think it was one of those, I really think, how did it happen? I know it was just like, I felt really overwhelmed with my son and my dad and I was like, okay, I got to just talk to someone. And then I think it was one of those even Michael Jordan had a coach, or great people always have coaches.
Yes, they do.
Is sort of what pushed me. I was like, yeah, why am I doing this by myself?
Yeah.
There's so much that and I think it definitely helped my marriage because there was a lot of unspoken things that I assumed that my wife should help with, because you're like, well, they're your partner, but then at the same time it's like, they signed up, but not for everything, and then it's okay to go out, like, outside of those bounds to, like, find other help and talk to people. So
It's very important to get help. It really is.
coaches are, like, just guidance.
Yeah. Yep.
Because because, and I would always tell people, like, and then I ended up doing, like, a little tour of all the people that I used to work with that I knew were unhappy.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to them, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe you should go talk to people.
Yeah.
Like, after I saw, like, how much I benefited from it, I tried to
Yeah.
help them and be like, trust me, like, you'll be happy. And I was like, and all they do, I can't see this, and all they do is, while you're looking at the glass, they just turn it like this,
Yep.
and they say, now look at it.
Yeah.
And that's all, like, the coach does, which
Yeah.
is
Because
a whole new world.
Right, and they're from the outside too, and they help you get you out of your own way.
Right.
And I was coached, so I can totally relate to that. Yeah,
And would you say, like,
it was the best thing that I had decided to do. And my coach was about 10 years a lot more than that, 15. About 15 years my junior.
oh, really?
Yes.
Junior even?
Yes.
Interesting.
15 years my junior. And that paradigm, that belief system was blown out of the water for
Yeah.
me, because it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter, like, what age you are or.
Right.
Yeah. It really doesn't matter.
See, that's great. And it is insanely helpful, I think, and I think that's where I think there's a big stigma, and I think with it's starting to come true, I think with all the meditation, I think mental health, this might be just another, like, second or third generation down, because now that we can be complacent and not just work, like, to death and just come home and be dead and,
Yeah.
get drunk and, like, have all
right.
spousal abuse and all that crap.
Right.
Like, like,
Oh
all
my
those bad
gosh.
things that people were kind of just hushing.
Yeah.
Now that we can, like, now that people can just sort of be like, wait a minute. And
Yeah.
mental health is slowly turning, I think, the page where people are realizing that the coach and things of that nature are just so much more beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, for you, did they ask certain questions that sort of, like, changed your mind, or do you think it was more?
Yeah. So the key thing, and I was in a lot of pain when I was open to speaking to this coach, and her name is Sonica, actually. What did she ask? Oh, I remember what she said to me. Oh my God. She said this. She goes, Jennifer, you've got to do something completely illogical. Those were exact words to me. Because your situation and my emotional state has become your norm.
Right.
So you have to, just to, like, break it.
Shock the system.
Shock the system, like, do something completely. And the most illogical thing for me to do at that point was to invest in a coach, because it would have stretched me
Right.
financially. But I did it.
Right.
And that's when everything turned around.
Is that, yeah.
Was to do the illogical. And and the more I started studying about paradigms, I started understanding why that is very much needed. You must do the illogical. You have to do something that breaks that pattern.
That's it. So the
Yeah.
patterns.
Yes.
So maybe we should go on that vein. I guess, I'll let you, do you want to elaborate a little more on that?
Well, what's interesting is, like, I was watching documentary film on Tony Robbins, I'm Not Your Guru.
Oh, yeah.
And what Tony does is, when he's talking to a person, he disrupts their patterns.
Right.
And he intentionally does that, right? So, and it's so smart.
Yeah.
So a big part of, like, what I do to disrupt my own patterns is I have to do something that's uncomfortable. I have to do something I haven't done before. I've never done a podcast before, so I'm gonna do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Thank you.
If someone's gonna invite me to speak in front of a bigger audience, I'm going to do it, even though I've never done it before.
Right.
I didn't have a professional photo shoot done before, so I'm gonna do something like that. So that's those things. I have to just break. And then when I'm also in my own rut, like, and I identify the paradigm, and you can feel what the paradigm is. If your energy levels or your emotions
Right.
lower, then you know you're in a negative paradigm,
Right.
negative thought process. So I'll do something opposite of that. I'll do the exact opposite of what's, whatever is causing that,
Right.
that
The
internal
situation.
situation
Yeah.
within me. Yeah. So it's those types of things. And it's really important to help a client understand those states of being.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Understanding. So that's kind of helping, and that's with coaching someone to see where their lower spots are,
Yes.
sort of thing, where their energy is. And
Yes. Yes.
I thought I had another good question in that, but now I just lost it. Do you have anything more to say on the paradigm thing, or with some of the shocking? Well, first and foremost, what was that? Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
I'll just keep thinking.
In terms of paradigms, just really how it affects a person's frequency, a person's vibration, and that we are constantly attracting what
Yes.
we are, not what we want, what we are
Yes.
to us all the time.
Yes.
So, and some people are like, is the law of attraction real? But see, they think of a law of attraction only as attracting the things that you desire. And then if they don't get it, they wonder why. It must not work. But actually, you are always attracting. We are always attracting, but we are attracting what we are.
Right. I just want to leave a pause on that, because that is, it's like it did take me a while to let that sink in myself. And I think that happened with, like, I don't remember when we met officially, but like just going to those things, going to the networking event was like, that was my just shock the system, because it was like I was comfortable in this thing of just sort of like creating on my own. And I was like,
oh yeah,
I just need to meet as many people as I can, and just kind of, like, where I know nobody, because the first time I walked in, like, there was no referral. I didn't, where Joe meets everyone and he invites them. Like, I didn't even get that in. I just randomly saw him on Facebook, like the event, and I just showed up.
Yeah.
And I was like, because it was weird too, because there was only like 5 people that were interested on the Facebook event.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, does nobody show up to these things? Like is this really not a thing that's happening? And then and I show up and like the room's packed. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of hung out, and I kept, kept going back to like. That's what I wanted to say. I actually watched the Jim Carrey movie, The Yes Man, which I think is in line with what we're saying with the paradigm shift, because the whole point is he met a guru that's just literally say yes to everything for a week or until further notice.
Right.
And that, I mean, it was weird though. Like when I watched it, I was like, that's kind of what I started doing. It was like all these events, like if it wasn't anything to do with my son or anything else, like I would make time to go at night. Even though you don't want, whatever you don't want to do, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then,
right.
It always works. It always like ends up being better. And there's something
It
like,
does, right.
Did you ever read, I just watched or read this, The Startup of You?
No, I haven't.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It's by the founder of LinkedIn, and he was talking about serendipity, but serendipity only happens in motion. Like it's something, it can only happen if you're out doing stuff.
Yes.
Never like in your house and someone's like, hey, will you do this? It's like, no, you got to be out, potentially meet someone.
That's right, yeah. This is the strong, Jim Rohn talks about creating your own philosophy, and I was thinking about this the other day, and my personal philosophy is we're always meeting the universe halfway. That's my personal philosophy. And even in leadership, if you're going to lead someone, that person has to meet you halfway.
Right.
If even with my clients, if they're having a hard time, with affording my services or whatever, they meet me halfway. We can figure something out. It's the same thing with if you want something, you've got to put it's almost like a chess game.
Right.
You've got to make your move so that the universe can also make its
Counter.
move
Yeah.
towards you, you know. But if we just remain stagnant, it's not. And this has happened over and over and over again in my life. Like, seriously.
Making a little move.
And sometimes a little move is a big move.
Right.
And then the return is huge. You know, it's like, and you think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but the fact that you pushed yourself just a little bit further than you thought you could do,
Right.
and then the return is just like, whoa, you know. So, and it opened up the door to many, many things. And
Just
I think
being open.
Yeah, being open. And I believe this is what I think is very key, is that when you decide to do something, you must do it.
Yes.
Don't rescind. Don't backtrack.
Yes.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Being decisive, it's a habit, actually.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
It is contagious, and it does. Yeah. It helped me do more things, I will say, on myself. Just going to that first meeting.
Yeah.
That Monday morning got me to like something else random, and
Yep.
you know, like all these groups, all these SBAC, just all these groups that
Yes.
like you do the one, and then you just continue to be
Yeah.
open, and it's like.
And what's really strange is this. So I'm working on my own vibration and frequency, right?
Mhm.
There's a certain method to do that. And I learned it from Bob Proctor. So, and I have a huge goal. And I don't really know how I'm going to achieve that goal. I have no idea. But I say to myself over and over and over again. So at the last Cup of Joe meeting, I meet this wonderful woman. She really has a presence about her. And she, you know, we approached each other, and she's like, "What do you do?" And I told her without any like apology, or because what we do is different. It really is. There's
Right.
there's a spiritual aspect to
Yeah.
what we do in terms of our coaching. We look at universal law and all that stuff. So, and I just told her, you know, without trying to sugarcoat it or whatever. And she goes, "You know what? You need to come to this group." So she opened that door. So get this. She goes, "My business has just up-leveled because of my association with this group." And I think you,
I should go.
you should go.
All right.
Get this, okay? This is an interesting story. So I'm like, okay, cool. So she's so on point. This woman's so on point. She emails me a couple of hours after yesterday's event, and I look at it. I resonate with it right away, okay? Because I inquired about it. I got a call from a woman in Bay Area, San Francisco. And I'm talking to her, and she goes, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a consultant with the Proctor Gallagher Institute." She goes, "Oh, well, the founder of our organization, our group, it's called the CEO. Oh, my gosh. The other word is escaping me right now. Is a good friend of Bob Proctor." I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." So I'm going to meet that guy tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be in Schaumburg.
Nice.
It's going to be in Schaumburg. A little bit of a drive. But, yeah. So that organization is so tight. I mean, you're talking about like within an hour's time
Right.
of being called by, you know what I mean?
They're just on
And
it.
they're really on it. And they're just like, we're really about just really serving, you know, the entrepreneur and helping them grow. And, you know, and she knew exactly what I was about because she's very familiar with Bob Proctor.
Right.
And you saw the scope of Bob's influence right there. So I'm very excited. Now, I was not planning on going there.
Right.
I wasn't planning on being in Schaumburg
Yeah.
tomorrow evening either, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, because that, for whatever reason, has opened up to me.
Yeah. And the worst case, there's going to be at least one open either connection, possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and that's what I'm finding. Every single thing that, like, no matter how not or whatever, there's always at least one, like one new something that, like, always leads to more stuff. Like, I feel like this journey is really this small treasure hunt. You know, like where you keep finding pieces along the. It's like, oh, one more piece. You just keep on. Oh, another piece. Oh, another one. Like.
Yeah.
So it's almost weird because it's hard to see the entire picture yet.
Yes.
But that's where so much of like actually trusting in the process,
Trusting
trusting
the process,
thyself
Yep.
is so key, because then
And you know
you
what's
don't
really
doubt along
yes.
the way.
And what's really fascinating is, especially when you know, and you may not even tell people because other people may think it's so crazy, but you know where you want to be.
Right.
You know where you want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you'll share that with people who you trust, right?
Right.
But you know where you want to be. So, and you may not know how you're going to get there, but you know where you want to be.
Yeah. And that's special. And that's part. This will actually circle back to our creator and our editor, because you know, the editor is also basically everyone else in our lives. You know, like however much we let them. I know I'm guilty that, like, some, you know, good friends that I've let them, you know, they'll say something not as interested about something, you know, that I was really pumped about, and it's like, oh, okay, well, and you gotta, you know, re-pump yourself up, and that's part of, you just end up trusting certain people to an extent, and they help you open new doors. And the other people, you just learn to shush them, and like, okay, you know, like they can have their opinion. It's like, that's cool, you know, but they're not, because you're going to somewhere different than they are, and so
yes, and your vibration's changing.
Yeah.
So your energies are probably not as compatible as before.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I definitely believe that too.
Yeah.
We're doing good. Do you want to talk more about vibrations? Do you want to talk a little about that,
Sure.
or what do you think? Should we?
I usually vibration.
We're at a good point, I would say. What?
In terms of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, what do you want to? Maybe we could probably do another 15-ish minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Is there anywhere you want to kind of push something? Anything you want to touch on in addition?
I think this is very important. I just have to say this.
Okay.
I feel like it's so important for people to dream again. Like, I just met someone earlier today. He will remain nameless. He's a wonderful person. And I learned that, he's got a computer engineering background, okay? But it turns out what he really loves to do is he was an actor. He's been on stage. And when he smiles, he becomes like a completely different person. It's so interesting. And I realized that if you were to tap into that more, he's not really open to it at this time, but if you were to tap into that more, he will actually find what he truly, truly wants in life.
Yeah.
You know, that creative nature. But sometimes we don't allow ourselves to.
Right.
But we should. And Jack Ma talked about this, the founder of Alibaba.
Yeah, Jack Ma.
He talked about how in today's marketplace, because of robotics and AI, that really where humans can truly compete now is through the softer skills. I think that's what he called it. You know, the arts, imagination, all of these things. So we all have to cultivate people skills. We all have to cultivate those things.
Right. Yeah. So the guy, and so I think the other thing, actually, I kind of wanted to say this from the last part, that I think the biggest thing, how was I having this? I think it was at Mindy's party on Saturday. I was having this conversation with somebody about, that it's not about the end of the journey that's really insane right away. It's really that first step, like, and that's kind of the zero, I guess it's kind of like the 0 to 1 book. But like that first step is really the biggest step, because everything else sort of falls in, because then at least you're open.
Yeah.
But it's really that first step is like the biggest hindrance to doing anything.
Right.
Because you just don't do anything. But then once you do something, then you can do more something.
Right. If you want to go on to like the along that line of thought in terms of vibration, like just think You literally, like, if you're like in a funk, right? You're like in a really negative vibration. It literally just takes one thought to move it towards the opposite. That's how it snowballs. So it's the same way. Even if you're in a positive vibration, but then you have a negative thought, then you can snowball the other way. So just being cognizant of that.
Yeah.
If you just need to change your vibration, because whenever we're in a negative vibration, we just bring more crap to us.
Right. Yeah.
We just notice this in our day, right? Like everything else goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
You spill coffee on yourself, traffic shit, or
Right.
whatever. Excuse me.
I don't mind. I can believe it if you want. I don't care.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
but when it's a positive vibration, you'll just notice that your physical experience changes. So the internal really matters. It really truly matters.
Yeah.
So that's that anyway. I just wanted to. We have so much more control than we think.
I've been noticing that too.
Mm-hmm.
More. It is hard when. Yeah. Well, that's like past environments too, that you're sort of in an environment where everything is,
Yeah.
things, because that's like 30 people that are the same way.
Yeah.
But then you sort of remove yourself a little bit from that environment, and then you can make those changes. So like,
Yep.
and that's what's hard, and that's what's weird about that first step too, because you really need to like pull yourself out to like actually make a new change.
Right.
Because you're not going to change 30 people or
Right.
whoever else are like contributing. It's kind of just like an incubator of just negative and bad.
Right.
And
Yeah. And it will influence you as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Until you get stronger, then you can influence it.
Right, which is.
And I felt that way being in the vicinity of disease all the time. I felt that way. I felt like, okay, is this going to affect me in a negative way, or am I going to affect it? And I
Right.
literally would feel this energetic, like, tug of war in those situations, especially when you're, sensitive or empathic.
Right,
And the funny thing is, that a lot of the people I talk to are very empathic because I am empathic.
right. Yeah, and that's something where you think you're doing the right thing, but it's also like eating
Right.
away at you.
Yeah.
And that's what's so, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to notice that, and it's hard to pull out, but yeah.
With awareness.
That's so. So let's do. How about on an actionable step? So let's say to kind of end it for general people that are feeling stuck. Obviously, everyone has the idea like, oh yeah, of course I need to quit my job. But what are some other? Everyone
Other
wants to
right,
hear
right.
someone say that.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, so finding thyself. I personally, I thought it was figuring out who your editor is and shushing them while you let your creator thrive.
Mm-mm.
Would you have anything in that sort of vein that people should try and?
Right. So this is the most important daily practice that I believe we all should do, because in order for the blessings to come to us and these higher levels of awareness, we actually have to raise our vibration to receive it. So, as soon as I wake up, between 3 and 4 a.m. in the morning,
Wow.
that's when I wake up, yeah. My husband and I are in the gym by 5.
Good for you guys.
Yeah. We had to develop new habits.
Yes.
We weren't always like that. We were hitting Dunkin' Donuts every day. Anyway.
Shock the system. Yep.
Yep, shocked us. Okay. So, I actually write down what I'm grateful for.
First thing.
First thing. That's what I hit. I hit my list of what I'm grateful for, and I write it down, because the act of writing changes your neural pathways.
Right.
And then I'm writing my goals, my vision, and I write a whole page with
That's
my
awesome.
right hand in the morning, and then with my left hand
Oh wow.
in the evening, which is really hard. It
Wow.
takes a lot of patience. But again, those
for you.
neural pathways, and that's why so in order to receive, you have to raise the, because here's the thing, everything you want is here already.
Right.
But in order to receive it, you have to become more vibrationally compatible to it. A big one, this is huge, is whoever, it depends on who this person's, who's listening to this right now, but whoever bothers you, whoever has wronged you, you have to send them love.
Yeah.
Just send them love. Don't get wrapped up in the
Right.
drama anymore. Just like release it and just send them love, because whatever we put out is what we receive. And then that practice, that new paradigm, that new
Right.
habit, vibrational habit, you'll see. If you want to get out of your job, your opportunity to get out will be there.
Right.
You'll see what the alternative is. See, a lot of people, they stay because they don't know what the new model is yet.
Mhm.
I was there for many years.
Yeah. Ditto.
Yeah.
That'll immediately is, which I'm finding with being open, is that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah. Right.
Because
right.
you don't, like, you want something, but you're not ready yet.
Yep.
And then when you're truly ready, then the dude or whatever is there, and it's like, oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. Right.
and yeah, everything there. And then even touching on that, yeah, that there's enough, kind of in any business, it's sort of that there's enough customers. Like there's
Yeah.
a bunch of people.
Exactly.
They're always there. You
Yeah.
just got to kind of like attract them by inciting, enticing, whatever. And it's hard though. And that's so being aware, being grateful, I think those are great steps. That's hard, but it's an easy thing. I think that people can get their mind around.
Right.
That's something they can do on their own, that they could just practice. And then from there, yeah, then after you do your gratitude, then you go to the gym and eat better.
Yeah. If
There-
you so choose. I mean,
If
but-
you, yeah, whatever your
yeah,
goal is.
Yeah.
There was, and that just reminded, there was an actual study. It was something about people that started running. Literally, it changed every aspect of their life.
Yep.
Where like they were late, they were smokers, they were eating bad, late on bills, just all these things. But then it was like, then they started running, and then they started eating healthier,
Yep.
and then they were on time for things,
Yes.
and then blah blah blah. You know, like,
Yes.
and so, but that was that. You know, you don't anticipate. I wish I remember what book that was, but that's sort of,
Yep.
it's the giant path that you
Right.
don't realize all those other positive steps are going to follow.
Yeah.
So,
The whole domino, it's like a domino effect. Yeah. That's really
of
interesting.
positivity,
Yes.
which is great.
Yeah. And just having good habits. Showing up.
Yes.
You know, as one of our cousins posted on Facebook. He was at, I forgot which one. It was like export or something. He goes, "This is gonna suck," right? I'm like, I LOL. I'm like, this, because it was funny. But the point is, he was there.
Right.
And I go, "And you still showed up. I'm so proud of you."
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good.
And laugh.
Yes.
Just laugh.
Try and laugh.
Yeah. Laugh as much as possible.
You know, and I'll say one last thing. Even giving love to people, I've been in a weird, you know, like when you, even people that I hadn't talked to in a while, and then I'll just sort of reached out, and it was just like, hey, thanks, and, you know, be nice. And it's nice, you know, people are receptive, you know, like if
Yeah.
you're like thankful to them and you're showing them, you know, just old best friends that moved away, I was thankful, you know, nice to them, and it was nice, you know, because then it also, I mean, obviously it's like selfish a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, you're giving them positive, you're letting them
Right.
know they're doing the
Yes.
right thing,
Yes.
and then it helps you, you know. I mean, it's such a good thing to just be
Right.
positive and give people love and
And see the highest in them. Just see the highest in them.
yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, that was a wonderful talk. That was I feel
Awesome.
like we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing points? I feel like we said a lot of good stuff,
yeah.
so people can find you. I'll include some links. You're kind of setting up all your
Yeah.
Facebook and
The
Instagram and
yeah.
stuff. So
Well, just Facebook and our website at this time. But
do you know have you bought your address yet?
it's reachyourhighestpotential.com.
So that'll be, you own that, right?
Yep.
Like, no, okay.
Yeah.
So as long as you own that,
Yeah.
we can say that, and then eventually it'll just kind of pop up, or you can always do a placeholder
Yeah.
that at least
Yeah.
your picture or something cool.
Yeah.
So I would how do I end this? So Jennifer, thank you for being my guinea pig. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming on for this first Braincast. And this happened because we were both open to doing and trying new things after a meeting. So you never know. And this was, so technically it'd be like 3 meetings. It wasn't the first meeting we had. So I think this is just shows that you need to be, one, patient and open to talking with people and meeting new people.
Yes.
Because when we met up, I had no idea that this is how we would do, like where we would end up.
Right.
But after we taught, you just don't know people. And once you get to talk to them, you realize how similar you are. And that's, so we had a very philosophical conversation with our, at 9:30 in the morning over coffee or whatever it was, 10.
Yeah.
And so this kind of really, were you the inspiration for this? Did your conversation might have helped me incite? I was like, you know what? I need to start filming these because it was so interesting, and I'm meeting so many interesting people that start with kind of the whole trying something new and seeing how it unfolds and see what happens. So,
and I love the name of it,
Braincast.
Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much for being my guinea pig. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. ReachOurHighestPotential.com. I am Mike from BullBrainCreative.com and BullBrain Creative Instagram, Facebook, if you need, which I'm sure that's how you found this. But either way, thank you for spending the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out, and I look forward to meeting you and seeing you all over and what you do with your business.
Absolutely.
Thank you.